Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and everything else in between, because we have to say that nowadays. Welcome to the Outpost Frequencies, brought to you by the Lastmovieoutpost.com for all of your movie news, reviews, and everything cool about film. I'm your host this evening, not George Lucas, and with me is Drunken Yoda.
Hi there, George. Glad to see I could bring you off of your and Sean's little podcast, your live stream or whatever about. I know it was about exploitation movies, but I'm going to retitle it "Watch How Far George and Sean Can Go Up Their Own Asses." Yoda doesn't like it when a guy gets a ice pick shoved up his ass and uses his brain as a pinwheel. Oh, he just doesn't understand. Whatever, buddy.
So you saw the video then?
He doesn't understand the artistry of that girl eating her own eyeballs. I just The guy he went on about Dashcam, I was like, oh my God. He just doesn't understand when a camera lies in the grass for 45 minutes while you hear car horns off in the distance. He just doesn't get it. He likes movies that are fun. Well, whatever. Fuck you both.
So you saw the me and Sean talking about extreme movies then?
No, I didn't see it at all.
We just said that you like normie films.
Yeah,
that's
I
what
like
it was.
normie films. You went all far that. I do like Upgrade, by the way, and both of us shat on the Batman, so whatever.
It's just, when it comes to the exploitation stuff, like I say, I didn't realise what a fan I was what it was. And then talking to Sean about it, and we just had similar tastes. And like I say, with you not liking Dashcam, we just thought, like I say, that you were a bit, boring.
Well, okay, one, fuck you. Two, the Dashcam, I was a little bit more nuanced. Okay, asshole, Sean. I said that I liked the chats. I love that part where people were responding and live stream. Oh, this is fake. I thought that was great, except when they forgot to put it on for 20 minutes. And then I liked the beginning and the setups, and I liked her, kind of this quirkiness as a character, but she kind of got more unlikable. But then it just turned into found footage dreck, in my opinion. And if it was supposed to be funny or it was supposed to be a joke, it's like I can't get the joke if I can't see what's going on screen. And having a camera lay in the grass for 45 minutes isn't giving me any context, okay? So I'm sorry. I thought that if they were going for more horror, I don't like the found footage technique. And that's what it is. They call it whatever you want. That's what it is.
No, I in a lot of respects I do agree with you, and I've seen a lot of found footage movies where I've hated it. The one that really annoys me is when I think it was Wreck, which is the one where the vampires are like living in the attic type of thing. But a professional camera crew go to investigate this thing, and then for some strange reason, as soon as it starts kicking off, the cameraman develops Parkinson's and cannot shoot straight. And I'm thinking, no, I've done shooting like this before. I used to film things like horse racing and stuff like that. I know how to point a camera at something and film it and not keep zooming in and out and shaking the camera all over the place. And that's the only thing I get with those. But then the problem is I do think a lot of the found footage movie stuff, a lot of them are just rubbish. Whereas I did think Dashcam was just a steps ahead of the competition.
Maybe. I haven't seen much found footage in a long time, probably since Cloverfield, or maybe what was that superhero one with Dane DeHaan? I can't remember.
Oh yeah. I know the one you mean, but I can't remember
the title. The guy who did it ended up doing Fan Four Stick and then screwed himself out of the industry. But it was like I couldn't tell what was going on. And one of the things, like when I talked to Sean about it, and he kind of explained that this was more of I wouldn't say a parody, but more of a comedy horror. And
yeah,
I could see some of that in it. I didn't need to see the lady shitting in the back of the car. I didn't need to see him cleaning it up afterwards. I could deal with her shitting in the back. Like, oh, she shit. Okay, that's gross. I didn't need to see him actually going in there and making gagging noises trying to clean it up. I saw no reason for that to be in the movie. And I didn't see if I'd had that context, like he had context, he knew these people, I guess. Or not, personally, but he's familiar with these I guess they're a band or something. He's kind of familiar with their quirkiness and all that kind of stuff. So he maybe had a layer of context that I just didn't have. So as a guy going in cold, I saw what I'll freely admit pulled me in for the first half of the movie. And then once she got in the car with the weird girl and things just started getting more and more chaotic, and I couldn't, again, I didn't mind that it got more, it should. I mean, that's obviously what we're going for here. But the chaos resulted in, I have no idea what I'm seeing on the screen because it's moving too fast. It's whipping, the camera's panning constantly or flipping. A couple of times, I think it was just throw the camera up in the air and just let's see what happens. And, it did lay in the grass for a fairly long time, and I could hear maybe some screaming and then a car horn, and then some police officers say, "You can't shoot a movie here." And
have you got a permit for that?
Yeah. I guess she turned into some sort of demon creature, which was kind of like, oh, that looked cool, but I never got a good look at it. Not good enough anyway, which maybe that's probably for the best given the budget. But
it's one of those. It's one of those scenarios. I've been watching the second part of In Search of Darkness, and I think it's Tom Savini who said that sometimes less is more. That if you don't see it, your imagination kind of run wild with it. And I can understand why people don't like that found footage type of movie. I think that my issue was I have sat through so much crap of just awful horror movies where there's been nothing original, nothing new, and it's literally content
more
as opposed to films.
That sounds like a you problem, not a me problem.
No. I look at it and I think, well, that looks quite good and it looks quite decent, but then it's absolutely awful. And I just found, the original movie that Rob Savage did was called Host, which was a seance over Skype, which was really well done, really, really well done. I really like this one because I just think it was, as I said, head and shoulders above a lot of the other crap that's out there. And unfortunately, you've got to wade through a lot of that crap and to get to something decent.
I will admit that after listening to you two talk about it and kind of go into some of the context that maybe I didn't have, I can see what you're talking about, and I might give it another shot. And maybe the second time around, when I know what's coming and everything, I know what to look for. Maybe I'll have a different opinion of it. I don't think that it was just one of these garbage ones that they put out in January.
Yeah,
all the time. I think it was better than that. But I when it went into what I saw as just complete lazy found footage territory, where it was just make the camera shake a lot so you don't know what the fuck is going on, and that'll be scary because you'll hear noises. I'm like going, I just and I don't have a predilection towards gory movies in general or horror movies in general. I just I admit it. Yes, I like my superhero stuff. I like my Star Trek. I like optimistic stuff. I like stuff that's fun. I'm weird that way, I guess.
No. But that's a good thing. No, yeah. But that is a good thing because, like I say, if we did all like the same thing, it would be incredibly boring world to live in. But we don't. We all enjoy like watching. Stuff. Yeah, exactly.
But it's not to say that there aren't some horror movies that I adore, like The Shining or the original Texas Chainsaw or the first Nightmare on Elm Street, and probably several others that I can't think of off the top of my head. The Thing, but I don't, if it's supposed to be funny, like I don't expect everybody to spell out the movie for me. I don't want that.
Yeah.
But I do expect to have enough context that I can form an opinion. And when the camera is complete chaos for most of the time, I have trouble trying to figure out what the filmmaker is even wanting me to see. Not necessarily what he's wanting me to understand.
Yeah.
Right.
No. Again, it's kind of one of those things. There are some moments in Dashcam where I think he got it absolutely spot on, where it is difficult to see that it must be difficult to film that kind of thing, making sure the correct stuff is shown, and obviously not, the guy with a hand up the monster's ass puppeteering it type of thing, I mean that obviously in a very vague way. And I think he got it absolutely spot on. Like I say, I really liked it. And hopefully we've got an interview with Annie Hardy, who's the main star.
I'd like to hear her what she says, or even well, depending on the time, I wouldn't mind being involved in that interview because I would probably come at it from a different angle. I don't want to shit on the whole thing. I mean, it's more than I've ever done.
Oh, here we go, another fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to cut Yoda off now.
Yeah. How dare you put that shit in my eyeballs? But I mean, you know, there was like moments like the dude, like she's out in the middle of nowhere. It looks like she's out in the field or in a woods. She's driven the car, but she's out in the middle of the woods, and the guy just finds her. And I'm like going, how did he? I mean, maybe he had GPS of the car, but if that's what it was, it didn't really come across that way. And if he had her phone, I mean, it's just like, how did he manage? You know, so that's the kind of logic crap that's why I have so many problems with Star Trek and everything right now, because you know that's supposed to be tailor made for engineer, you know, logic minds like us, and they're completely fucking it up.
It is kind of a shame that they sometimes put so much thought into the story and stuff like that, but then they completely miss, you know, other gaping holes of
the details
reality.
You,
yeah, exactly. The devil's in the detail. Anyway, so let's talk about some of the news first of all.
I do want to answer before you start. I want to answer this one question, Zap, because he put it on here before we even started, so I feel like we need to ask to answer it. Will Top Gun, I'm assuming he means be the first and maybe only movie to make over $1 billion this year? I'm going to say no. I don't think it's even going to come close.
You reckon?
I think it's going to make $500 million, maybe. I think people are overestimating the nostalgia and how much people want to go to it now. I'll be happy to be wrong. I'll be the first one. If I'm wrong, I'll be the first one to say, thank God I was wrong, because I think from the trailers and everything I see, it looks like an awesome movie. And it looks like a throwback.
I never got the original. I was very late coming to the original, and when I watched the original, all I kept thinking was how homoerotic the whole thing was.
That's why people like you who didn't live in the 80s and didn't understand the rah-rah go America in the middle of the Cold War, cool jets.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
If you weren't there for that, if you missed that, then Top Gun isn't as big a deal to you.
No.
And you know, if they think that tons of people are going to love now, if they think a ton of people, especially young people, are going to love it the way people like me love it, they're crazy. And you're right. The homoerotic stuff is hilarious. I mean, even the girl's name is Charlie, right? So, I mean, and that part's funny. I'm sure it's all unintentional, but it is kind of funny. But it's, you know, today, I mean, one, we got an actual war going on, so the timing couldn't be worse. Secondly, everything's, well, not everything, but so much of it's done with drones and stuff now.
Yeah.
And fighter pilots. I don't think
they're buried in a bunker deep somewhere on a remote control and that kind of thing.
And stuff in their face with chips going up. Yeah. Top Gun, whatever.
They look
I know
like
it's not
us.
like that, but yeah, you know.
No, I was going to say, they look like us. They're not like fit young Tom Cruise with shirts off and that kind of thing. Yeah.
They didn't have to have 20/20 vision. Let's put it that way. But I just don't see it being the big... There's one generation, the Generation Xers, I think, maybe some baby boomers, that really have a fondness for Top Gun because of it when it came out at the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it has that kind of resonance through the 90s and the 2000s.
Yeah, like I say, that. I mean, it is only 30 years ago, but I mean, the world has changed so much that, like you say, it's not the kind. Like you say, I completely understand how, as an English guy, I missed the whole, you know, America's great and everything else kind of thing about the movie. And so, like I say, to me, it never interested me. As the second one doesn't, I'm not bothered about it at all. But that generation, like you say, that grew up in that time with those fears, and they all wanted to grow up to be fighter pilots and those kind of thing. Nowadays, kids don't want to grow up to be fighter pilots anymore. They want to grow up to be YouTubers and TikTokers and that kind of thing. You know, it's a completely different generation that they're trying to appeal to.
Yeah, and there are some hooks though. The fact that everything, or a great portion of it, is filmed in real fighter jets, that these are real fighter jets that are happening, not CGI. I mean, I'm sure there is CGI in it. I'm sure that they didn't blow up actual jets, things like that. But
Tom Cruise has got some sway, but not that
he
much.
ain't got that much sway. He ain't gonna blow up a $35 billion plane. But there's so much of it that is real in it, and then the people are in the cockpits, and they have like 6 IMAX cameras on them in various different. So I mean, there is that hook, which I'll admit, I'm like going, yeah, sign me up just for that. Even if I didn't have any Top Gun, I'd like to see.
It's going to be a great action movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So will that be enough to sway those that don't have the nostalgia? And I don't know. I mean, I don't see that the Mission Impossible movies do well, but they're not breaking the bank.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see. Zach's just said they do tend to share one physical quality with Yoda, but I'm afraid they do not look like you guys or me for that matter. No, exactly, Zach. I imagine you're in the same generation as us. That, like I say, we're more on the technical side of Top Gun, where we can quite happily sit there and design the aircraft, but staying fit and flying them, not so much.
Is he talking about the actual Yoda or fat dad Yoda over here? Because I mean, both of those are probably correct.
So let's talk about the news then. So there's new footage or photos out from the Avatar film. The second of what, 5 is it going to be already at the moment? Absolutely. I saw the trailer before Doctor Strange this week on Friday. There is nothing about that movie that makes me want to go and see it in any way, shape, or form. I have seen the first one. I can't remember if I saw it in the cinema or not, but I saw the first one and I sort of thought, yeah, it's right. It was...
Avatar was a phenomenon because of the advanced 3D technology from beginning to end. It wasn't just, retrofitting it or kind of doing it. James Cameron did it for a 3D experience unlike any other, especially in IMAX. And I can't fault him for that. That is what made it such a big deal at the time. And then he told a Titanic typical story that was simplistic and stupid and just hits you right. It just hits the normies. And you call me a normie, but come on. That is a when Red Letter Media did Titanic, he said Titanic is as average as it gets. It hits the bullseye in the center of average, and that got everybody. That's why it made so much money. Avatar does the same thing while adding this new technology to it. Okay.
Yeah.
Once it was out of the theaters, and once it went on to home video, and you watched it without all the extra technology, and it had to get by on its story alone, it ain't good. And nobody talks about it like it's not an IP that people fondly remember or continue to talk about or go.
That's what I don't understand. Why James Cameron is now? Don't get me wrong. The man has made some great sequels. Obviously, he's made some great movies, but I don't understand what made him think, do you know what? Yeah, this is the one. This is the one I need to make a 5-series movie set out of.
I would have, after so many retellings of the story of Titanic, when he was, and I remember the stories, this was back in 96, 97, where they, he blew $220 million on Titanic, and this is going to be a boondoggle, and there's no way this, and we all felt the same way. It's like Titanic. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be interesting with the new special effects and everything, at least at that time. But I mean, come on, there's no way he's going to make his money back. And he ended up breaking all the box office records.
I don't know what the magic formula is that he has, but his movies always do tend to do this, that he seems to just get the advertising right and the marketing right, and he just makes people need to go and see those films. Again, Avatar was one of the biggest, it sort of reached number one for a while, didn't it? And
okay, he doesn't have as extensive a film catalog as you might think, so when you say that, it's really just his last two. He hit gold on Titanic and on, and I mean gold. I'm not saying that Terminator 2 wasn't a blockbuster, but it didn't break Star Wars record or anything.
No.
Abyss was great, didn't break records. The first Terminator was a surprise and is fondly remembered, and yeah, certainly is a cultural icon. Didn't break records. True Lies, I love the movie, but it did okay, success, but not, a very successful movie. Not, it was Titanic and Avatar that blew open the doors and broke box office records everywhere. Right. So, 2, is that a trend? Will Avatar 2 be as? Will it continue that trend? I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, because if one, he has got somebody else writing the story. It's not him writing the story, or at least he's got a screenwriter in there.
Yeah.
So maybe if this has all the 3D stuff, but he makes a much better story, a story that really grabs you and works and isn't so simplistic and everything. Maybe. I don't know. I don't want to bet against the man. Let's put it that way.
I kind of would like to have seen him gone with a new IP. I mean, Avatar was a completely new IP when it came out, and it was nice to see something fresh and original. And I think, not that I'm bored with modern Hollywood, but I'm sort of very much getting there. But just the whole sequel, prequel, churn out, spin-off, whatever it is just, that for me, that's one of the main reasons I'm just not that bothered with it, because it's another IP of the same thing, and it's just I'd have preferred to see something new from him.
Well, how long has it been in production now? Like 7 years? It's just
something. Yeah,
it's been ridiculous.
But then aren't they shooting back to back as well with them?
I think it's just taken him this long to finally get it to the point that he can release it. When's it coming out? Next year, 2023, something like that. I don't know. I know he loves doing stuff underwater. He did The Abyss, he did Titanic, and now this is Avatar: The Way of the Water. And I know he loves Avatar, so now he's put them both together. So, if my math works right, it should make $7 billion.
Yeah, exactly. Zach has said Cameron loves the technical aspect of filmmaking. Oh, he said about being balding and tight helmets and the G's. Yes, I imagine tight helmets. Can you imagine us with a lot of G's? Faces going all over the place. It'd be absolutely awful.
It'd be like when Grandpa Simpson turned back into Homer.
Yeah. Cameron loved the technical aspect of filmmaking. He enjoys advancing filmmaking. Think of how many advances he has been part of since his career. Remember Escape from New York? Yeah,
I mean, Piranha 2?
Yeah.
Or Piranha. Maybe it was Piranha. I know he did the special effects work in Battle Beyond the Stars and things like that. I'm not faulting the man for his technical work. I'm not at all. The guy has made breakthrough after breakthrough. I mean, you look at the Abyss water tentacle, you look at the T-1000.
Yeah.
You look at what he did with Titanic. You look at what he did with Avatar. From a technical aspect, from a special effects, for breaking new ground in cinema, making you go, wow, that's something I've never seen before. Hands down, the best. Storytelling, I mean, I just don't know with Avatar. We've had 10 years since Avatar now. More than that, 14 years. Yeah. 14, because it came out in 2009, right? So it's that's 13 years, 14 by the time it comes out. And they've been able to put anything and everything on the screen and now, to the point that we're kind of jaded, So I just don't know if he's going to be able to do something that we go, oh yeah. Unless the 3D is, like he actually does a holodeck in the theater or something. I just don't know.
You never know. Like I say, it's all going to be in virtual reality, so we all put headsets on.
Black eyes, like the Navi had been punching in the face. It's like, wow, it was amazing. Like, what the hell happened to you?
The stupid thing is, I mean, like you say, it's about the storytelling. And I mean, I've seen movies with zero special effects, but have hooked me far more than... and so, yes, push these technical boundaries. I completely get that, and I think it's amazing when directors do that. but it has got to be built around the story first of all.
Do you watch Critical Drinker?
Yeah.
Did you see his thing on 12 Angry Men?
I haven't yet. No, it's on my list.
It is in my top 10 movies. It's one I revisit every so often. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's one I tend to forget about for some reason, because you end up talking about recent modern stuff from our childhood and things like that.
Yeah.
But 12 Angry Men is a prime example of what you're talking about. It's a movie about a jury that is deliberating just after the trial. It starts out like in the trial, and and it's like, okay, you've got all your information, please go and deliberate, and we'll and then they go through, and you got one guy who's like going not guilty, and the rest of them are going guilty. And you've probably seen this trope done in other mediums or something like that, but in this one, first of all, you get a stunning cast. It's all done in one room. It could be a stage play. And the camera work and the lighting and everything he talked about, I had noticed long ago, and some of it I hadn't noticed. I mean, he found things in there I wasn't even thinking about. But it is a brilliantly done movie. It's all done in one room. It's all done almost real time, and it's just 12 guys arguing around a table, and it's one of the best movies ever made. So that is a prime example of what you're talking about.
And I think it was James Cameron who said that just because you've got, special effects or 3D doesn't make a good movie great or anything. That just because if 12 Angry Men wasn't in 3D, it wouldn't be a better movie.
It would be far worse, actually.
and
it's in black and white, for God's sakes. It's not even in color.
That's probably why a lot of people haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's too bad because it is a phenomenal movie. Yeah, I tried to get my wife to watch Casablanca, one of the greatest movies of all time. She just it's black and white. I don't like it. She just loses interest, and it's kind of sad because there's some great stories out there. I was going to say I saw a great thing of it was interviewing Joe Dante, and he was saying about the remake of Psycho, how they just sort of remade it for a modern audience, and it was literally shot for shot, apart from a couple of scenes which had been slightly altered. And he said, "What an utter waste of time!" He said that was a travesty of a remake. It was
an
exact shot for shot remake. That was the one Gus Van Sant did.
Yeah, but he said it was just such a waste because some people won't watch it in black and white. And he said, well, if they do, they're missing out. It's kind of like, don't pander to these people and make something in colour. Just make them watch the old one. If they don't want to watch it, that's their loss.
I mean, I'm sorry, but, what was her name? She was the girl that went with Ellen for a while.
Anne Hesh.
Anne Hesh is no...
Oh, yeah.
The original actress from Psycho. I mean, she's...
Oh, man. Brain fart.
The mother of Jamie Lee Curtis. Aren't we sad? Welcome to being old.
well,
I'm
welcome
sure
to
Zap can look it up
at
for
the
us.
Last Movie Outpost. Goodness me. Oh, that's terrible. I can't remember her name. Janet Leigh.
Janet Leigh, thank you. And I mean, Anthony, Vince Vaughn is no Anthony Perkins.
No.
Not for that role. I don't dislike Vince Vaughn, but I mean, come on.
It was just one of those, again, it was one of those things where it's kind of, there is absolutely no reason to make this movie in any way, shape or form. If you are just making it for people who won't watch the black and white version, then just don't do it. Because it's...
That old trope where you take a photocopy or make a copy of a copy and it's blurry and it's not as good. That's exactly what that remake was.
Oh, dear. Terrible. Did you celebrate Star Wars Day?
I did not. I mourned.
Oh,
That's my mourning day now.
We talked about the prequels the other day, and I did watch the prequels a couple of weeks ago. But I did sit down and watch the, not just the trilogy and the original trilogy, but they were the fan cut special edition, despecialized 4K versions, which are basically despecialized but in 4K. So Han shoots first because I just it's so painful to watch that scene and seeing Greedo shoot first and with a gun pointing straight at somebody literally 3 feet away, and yet it's so painful. And so I had to watch the despecialized special editions.
I would love to make I should sit down. It's going to be a painstaking process, but I would love to sit down and take the special edition, keep the shit I like, and then cut in the despecialized stuff of the stuff I don't like. And
That's what the fan edits are.
There are fan edits, yeah, and I haven't picked one up, but you know, it isn't like I just don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. You know, I like the better compositing. I like the Battle of the Death Star at the end. I like it when Han, you know, pulls up short when he runs around a corner and he sees 8 million stormtroopers. It makes that joke work so much better, you know?
Yeah.
There's little moments like that. It's like, this isn't that bad. And then there's other things where I'm like going,
why?
Han shot first, or
Anakin at the end. What I had to change him with Hayden Christensen, even though he died as Sebastian Shaw. And it was just
it's kind of a middle fingers to Sebastian Shaw, I always thought.
Yeah. But I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed watching the original trilogy again. They are just a great set of movies, and I still say Empire is the best one, but Jedi is my favourite because I love it. I think it's because it's the first one I remember seeing in the cinema. I don't think the Ewoks are as bad as what people make out, and just the whole flying through, that sequence flying through the Death Star is so brilliantly done. It's brilliant.
I vacillate between Empire and the original Star Wars. I agree with you. The Empire Strikes Back is the best of the three. Objectively, it's the best.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Subjectively,
and technically, and I was going to say, and technically, and everything else. Yeah. I think Empire just nailed every part of it. It was brilliant.
It makes the lore, and it deepens the universe. Yeah. The first Star Wars is a fun action adventure movie. However, Empire can't exist without it. And you say, and maybe I have the same thing. I saw Star Wars, one of my first movies in the theater, and it was at the Glenwood Theater, which at the time had the biggest indoor screen in Kansas City, and it was in 70 millimeter. And I'm 7 years old, and that's one of my first memories is watching fucking Star Wars in 70 millimeter on the biggest screen. You want to talk about rewriting your DNA? That's and I'm like going, I mean, it had such a profound effect on me. Now, I still remember watching Empire with my grandpa the first time, and the moment happens, the pre-spoiler days, and the moment happens where it says, "No, I am your father," and I remember my jaw just hitting the ground.
See, I don't remember that. I hate myself for that.
I remember it like plain as day, just going, just my brain just broke in half. My 9-year-old brain just broke in half, and I saw Return. So I do have fond memories of all of them in the theater. Yes, but I just, subjectively, I just have such a soft spot for the first one because it kicked off everything, and it just, if you were there, even as a kid, if you were there, it was such a cultural earthquake, the likes of which I don't think we've seen since.
Not for an awfully long time.
Maybe Marvel, but it took 10 years and 21 movies to do it.
Yeah. Whereas literally Star Wars came out of nowhere and it just changed everything.
It broke the earth in half. I'm not kidding, guys. If you weren't there, you don't know. It came at a perfect time. There wasn't 8 million things to watch. There wasn't, the movies were still well regarded back then. It did a special effects that nobody had ever seen before. It touched deep mythological,
it did. It changed
moments
everything
in our psyches. I mean, everything. It was if you want to talk about the perfect storm, the original Star Wars was the perfect storm, as perfect could get. And you got to look back also. I mean, especially in America, and I don't know how it was in Britain, but everybody was down because of Watergate and the Soviet Union, and there was inflation. And
we're English. We're always down.
That's true. And it just hit like a lightning bolt. I can't explain it if you weren't there. More than I have. My words don't do it justice. It was just that big a deal. And it obviously, because it continues to resonate 40 some odd years later.
Yeah. So going on to then, because you just briefly touched on the MCU then. So we've had the MC. Well, I say we've had the MCU. The MCU is still out there, and they have created a cinematic achievement from Iron Man to Endgame. Now we're on to Phase 4, and with Phase 4 we have had movies like Black Widow, and we have had the 10 Rings of Shang-Chi, and
Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah, no, sorry, I'm trying to think there. I'm sure there's another one, but I can't remember what it is. That's how important they are. But we've just had Doctor Strange into the Multiverse of Madness. Mm. Now, we've both seen this, haven't we?
Yes.
I wrote a review, which is on the Lastmovieoutpost.com. I was not massively impressed. I gave it a solid 2 out of 5 stars. Your take on it was a little different.
I think it was elevated by Sam Raimi's direction in general. There's some things. One thing I really liked about it is that it made WandaVision better because they embraced that she is a villain. Right. They did not shy away from that.
Yeah.
And she took the next steps to being a full-blown villain. Now, you understand her motivations. You understand why she's doing what she's doing, and you can empathize with that, which makes her a more compelling villain than most of the MCU. And I like the weirdness. I wish there was more of it. I wish they kind of went into more of that Jack Kirby nuttiness. Like, they had one moment where they were going through all these different universes. Like, were we paid to one universe? Like, yeah, you don't want to be in that one.
Yeah. It's difficult to eat. Yeah.
Yeah. And they were in a cartoon universe, and but it was only for a second, There were some things that surprised me. I guess we'll just say spoilers from here on out, because I'm not going to try to dance around it. So you've been warned.
I don't think you're mixing masses like with the spoilers and stuff, but yes, I mean, like I say, we are going to talk about spoilers.
I liked that I thought the undead Strange would be something they had to fight, and it was completely different than what I thought it was going to be. I did not expect that for whatever reason, that it was actually just Strange using a different Strange as a meat puppet.
Yeah.
I like the weird. I like that he had a price for that with the third eye. I don't know what that means, or if he's just got better vision now. I don't know what that means with the third eye.
It means he can't get glasses.
Yeah, it's those are some very, very custom jobs for him.
Yeah.
So those are the things I liked. I didn't like that it wrapped up too neatly. In a nice bow. Everything kind of was a happy ending in it, and you say, well, Wanda made the right choice, and she destroyed the temple and all that, and she's still alive. If you don't see her dead, she's alive. Nobody.
I think somebody made the comments on the Last Movie Outpost in the talk about that. They sort of said that with this whole multiverse and everything else that's going on now, there is no real stakes as such anymore, because when somebody dies, it's kind of like, oh, they did, type of thing. And
I kind of disagree with that. I do disagree with that.
I don't think there's enough money in the world to get what's his name, Robert Downey Jr. back.
No,
not after his fee for the last two.
Oh, maybe. Oh, there's always enough money. There's always enough money, especially if he keeps making movies that just aren't doing well. If he keeps making more Doolittles.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But he doesn't need to make any.
I want to be Tony Stark again, please.
Yeah. If he wants to come back, they'll figure it out. Yeah. But I do think that I know people say, oh, with the multiverse, but they're all the same and there's no stakes. I'm like going, well, no, each one of these different variants of the character are different characters. And it's not like I haven't seen one of the more popular episodes of the original Star Trek was the Mirror Universe, right? And then they did one called Parallels, which had millions of universes, parallel universes with different variations of yourself in all of them. And it isn't like it's a trope that we haven't seen before. Fringe had that whole series was about multiple universes and different versions of yourself. And so DC Comics has done it forever. Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth 3. But you are latched on to your universe, the 616 universe, how they're going to get out of it, even if they have to deal with other versions of themselves. They're still unique in their own way. I don't find it, because their life paths. I mean, in Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, it really kind of centered around 2 universes, maybe 3 different universes, I would say. The one universe is the one that had the Illuminati and had the different variants. Like you had Captain Carter from the What If, and you had Black Bolt, and you had Charles Xavier, which Picard, you liar. You could have tried a little bit harder.
You see, just on that, just to briefly mention, somebody made the point that in No Way Home, you had different Spider-Mans from different universes. So you had Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, and in the animation they did as well. I can't think what it was called now. Spider-Man, the one
Spider-Verse.
That's Spider-Verse. Thank you. They had completely and utterly different, Spider-Man's, a Porky Pig one, and
but
all
they
kinds
also
of
had
things.
a Peter Parker one that was just about the same as the other one. He just was fat and gone through.
Yeah, but the point I was going to make is that it's then weird that we go to another universe where Xavier is played by the same guy, and also the Stephen Stranges are all the same as well. Played by Benedict Cumberbatch.
But like the Captain Marvel wasn't. It was the
but it was still
strong, diverse female character.
No, Captain Marvel. Sorry, I was going to say, but Captain America was still Haley Atwell, and again, it was just kind of.
Well, that was from the What If thing. I mean, they're going to do some fan service. I don't blame them for that. I don't blame them for if you're going to bring in Charles Xavier for one little cameo, then why wouldn't you bring in Patrick Stewart? Why wouldn't you? Unless you're planning to do something different long term. Now, maybe long term they're going to bring in another guy. I don't know who. But
I mean, Patrick Stewart is knocking on a bit,
so I
mean, I know it's a not horrible thing that we have to think about, but he is going to pass away at some point in time, and so yeah, they are going to have to replace him. But I mean, to me, that whole bit where, again, we're going into spoilers here on with Doctor Strange, the bit where you had the Illuminati and you had Reed Richards and you had these others. To me, a completely pointless scene because, again, spoilers, they all get killed in literally 10 minutes. And not only killed, I mean, just like slaughtered within, there's not really much of a scene for them to do anything, I didn't think.
I do agree. I don't know if they're trying to show Wanda was, super powerful, they already did that at Camertage. So they didn't really need to do it again. And I mean, as far as moving the plot along, I guess it was fine, but you really just needed her to appear and then Rachel McAdams rescue them and they go underwater and, do that thing. You didn't need the Illuminati except for a bunch of cameos. So, yeah, I would say.
And fan service and that's what I saw it.
I don't disagree with you there. It was pointless because it didn't really mean anything to the overall story except, hey, look, maybe. It almost felt like focus group. Like, let's see what kind of reaction we get with John Krasinski as Reed Richards. Let's see what kind of, and if it's really positive, then we'll do him with a Fantastic Four movie or something. That's what it felt like.
See, again, and with Reed Richards, they sort of he keeps saying he's the most intelligent man on the planet. And I just immediately thought, right, he's going to take on Wanda and he stretches towards her and gets killed. And I'm thinking, that's not very smart. I'm pretty dumb, and I would think to myself, if I was Bendy, I would be bending under a door away from all of the horrible, And it didn't strike me. I mean, he's always been to me a character which has been really he bends. That's his thing. He's like Elastigirl. I don't really see that.
His stretchiness is it is what it is. It's a dumb power, but he's got it, so that's what he is. His real superpower is that he's the uber super genius of all super geniuses,
Oh, okay.
That's really a superpower.
But obviously not clever enough to realise that taking on a witch who can manipulate things with her mind.
Our universe one will be better. The 616 one will be better. Just like Doctor Strange was better. He didn't try to kill the girl. And I didn't have a problem. By the way, I've heard this is MCU, more MCU. I didn't see it that way. I mean, America Ferrera was more of a MacGuffin than a hero.
Yeah, I suppose. Again, when she introduced herself, I think I said this in the review, that she introduced herself as America Chavez. I did think,
or really, Chavez, she's called what it was? I don't remember.
Yeah, but she was called America. So Doctor Strange is saving America, and I thought, and then when she said that she speaks Spanish and she's Chavez, and it was just kind of ticking all the boxes, because our brains have now been programmed that way. I kind of hate the fact that I watch a modern movie and think, oh right, how is this going to be woke? Whereas sometimes they've not done it for any reason whatsoever.
Do you think it was woke? Do you think the movie was woke? I didn't.
I love the fact that they race swapped Captain America, but they didn't. Oh, not race swap. They gender swapped Captain America, but they didn't gender swap Captain Marvel.
They did. No, they race swapped Captain Marvel. The Captain America. That is Peggy Carter is an actual character.
Yeah.
It isn't just out of nowhere, and they did set it up in What If, how that happened, and I like Peggy Carter. I like Haley Atwell as a character, so that one doesn't bother me. Like, she, in a different universe, she ended up being Captain Carter instead, because she had the big Union Jack on the shield and all that.
Yeah.
So I that to me is like a different character that just happened to get the super soldier serum instead of Steve Rogers. The other Captain Marvel, I think that's supposed to be the one that they did in the 80s. The black one that had light powers or something. And they've set her up in WandaVision already. So I think that was just a natural extension of her. Like, she became the Captain Marvel in that universe.
See,
Monica Rambeau or
she set her up. So I'm just trying to think now. See, it's keeping up with all of this stuff because it's
a nightmare.
Yeah. So basically, a black Captain Marvel was set up in WandaVision.
Okay. So in the comics, part of it is that I have a lot of history with the actual comics.
Right.
So I
don't. I'm completely blank with them.
Contextually, it's easier for me to pick out some of this stuff, or to at least look it up, because I remember some of this. Monica Rambeau was a Captain Marvel in
right. Okay.
In the Avengers.
Now you've said
80s.
The name.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And she had like a light spectrum powers, whatever. And she was a fine character back in the day. I mean, there was nothing. She happened to be black. It wasn't like her defining character.
Yeah.
And so they set her up in WandaVision. She got that. Monica Rambeau got those powers, and her mother. I don't know if this one was her mother or the Monica Rambeau that we saw, but like a different version, a different universe that we saw in WandaVision, or if it was, I can't tell. I wasn't. She had on her hair was different. She had on the helmet half the time, and I just don't feel like I got a good enough look at her to tell whether it was which one of those it was. And it makes sense that they, I know everybody saying, oh, you think all black people look alike? No, they cast two women that look very similar because they're mother and daughter. Okay.
Yeah.
I've had this problem with other characters as well, white or whatever. So I can, stop with the comments. Okay. So I was like that. I guess that was fine. It didn't, the whole Illuminati, I think, bothered me because they were supposed to be this they were the Avengers of that Earth.
Yeah.
And they were supposed to be they were like kind of smug. It's like, oh, we can handle Wanda. We know, and they seem to know what's going on. And then they just get their asses handed to them.
Yeah, they'd beaten Thanos.
Yeah.
Somehow, I mean, they said that because of course he. No, I was entering spoiler territory there, which I was just going to pull myself back on. But yes, they've beaten Thanos in that universe as well. But then literally Wanda turns up and slaughters them. And like I say, it's not just I didn't even think it was a particularly epic battle. It was a slaughter.
Yeah. Although I did enjoy Xavier getting killed in the mind verse or wherever he was. Getting his neck snapped. She's so powerful she could snap his neck into his mind and he dies in real life. That's pretty awesome.
That's what happened in the Matrix.
Yep. So, but I mean, it was a fight because we needed an action beat. It was not a fight that had any real purpose. So I agree. I think my wife fell asleep during that part.
I again, the opening sequence where we first, what's his name? Strange is at Christine's wedding. Again, not saying that was woke, but she was marrying a black guy. You know, again, it's just a modern society. That's fine. But the whole then octopus with one eye thing who was chasing Chavez, I didn't check out, but the CG was just not good. Really? I didn't think. Yeah.
I thought it was. I mean, I wouldn't say it was stand out or anything, but I didn't have any huge problems with it either. It was fine. It was good enough. I didn't see anything that stuck out at me and go, "Ooh, that's bad."
I did think that Scott Derrickson did a better job with the multiverse stuff in the original movie. The whole bit where they're running up the buildings and all that kind of thing.
In the Mirrorverse, yeah.
All that kind of stuff.
Or whatever the hell that was.
I think was done so much better. Whereas this, I was looking at it, and because it was like a big giant thing with one eye, I immediately was thinking of the Suicide Squad. And also, I just thought that the whole CG of that moment, I just don't know, it just didn't. It wasn't. It was all too perfect. You know, in the original Avengers, when Loki opens up that portal and the Chitauri come through and stuff, it feels real and it feels like something that is actually happened. Whereas this opening sequence, I was just like, no, I'm not buying it. It's too clean.
Do you think that's a pandemic holdover and timing and all that? I don't know.
Whether it was, I mean, you can kind of direct action or you can't. And I'm not saying that Rami can't, because he is great and he's, but I mean, to me, his style of like the Evil Dead is completely different then to something like this, which is much more big budget and much more CG and that kind of thing. And so whether it was just, like you say, just missing a few beats here and there that just, I don't know, didn't sit with me. It didn't sit with me.
The way you talk about that, and I think back on the movie, I love the Raimi bits. Like, there's one bit where it fades from one to the other around the silhouette of Wong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It had moments, that was a Raimi kind of moment like that, where he cuts in different bits that he, you can kind of see those Spider-Man touches. And he brought in Danny Elfman. There was those kinds of things that I really liked that gave it a little bit more interesting photography and editing than, a typical Marvel movie. That I think he was head and shoulders above Scott Derrickson. But when you get into the actual Doctor Strange stuff, the weirdness, it almost felt like he had one hand held behind his back. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like, okay, we're going into a weird dimension here. Oh, it's just got a lot of flowers, I guess. Oh, we're going to the dimension where there was an incursion. We have kind of an evil Doctor Strange, and it looks kind of drab. I mean, you got some floating buildings, but overall you just feel like they're on a set. There's nothing much there. Now, I did love the fight between him and the evil Strange where they were using musical notes. I thought that was cool. I love that. I thought it was so weird and bizarre. I was like, that's fun. That's cool.
It's kind of, I think, again, I mentioned this in the review, that again, Iron Man is based in a reality which could happen. The Iron Man, he could build an arc reactor.
They flushed that shit down the toilet a long time ago,
yeah.
Man.
No. But I mean, with that, like I say, that for me, this then took it that bit too far. And funny enough, I'd completely forgotten about that musical bit. I did roll my eyes and sort of think, yeah, this is a good sort of trope to have in a movie, but at the same time, it's kind of ridiculously not real.
Well, here's the problem. I love the idea of them using because that's the kind of Jack Kirby weirdness that I was looking for.
Okay, so there you go. You've already established there that you've kind of seen nothing. I wasn't expecting that kind of thing, and so for me, it was much more of a shock.
If you've ever read the old Doctor Strange comics, they go into real psychedelic nonsense. It's great. I mean, the artistry is great and everything else, but my problem with the fights, and this is the same with that fight, the same with the Illuminati fight, is that it was just a quick obstacle you knew he had to get past, right?
Yeah.
There was no doubt that he was going to win that fight. Just like it was like watching him and Mordo when they didn't have any powers because they both had on the handcuff thing, and so they're just punching each other and doing some weird parkour in that trench in the room. I was just like, get on with it, you know? And I felt that a little bit the same in that fight. Now, what made it interesting was all the weirdness with musical notes and the harp and all that kind of stuff. I love that part of it. The problem is it's wasted on a fight that it doesn't have any...
There's no threat or sort of end basis.
It's just you feel like you're treading water. And I think as we talk through this, I think that's the biggest problem with this movie is that there's so many moments that you're just treading water to get to the next scene to keep things moving.
Again, that's exactly what I found with a lot of the plot exposition. That obviously plot exposition has to go on, but I felt it was very much one needs to now explain, you know, what's going on here, and then so one would explain that, and then somebody else needs. And again, I felt there was no flow in it that I've seen before. It was kind of this scene is now set up because we need to explain why this character is doing this, and I'm sorry, I'm thinking through this as you're talking. You're kind of igniting synapses in my brain. The beginning, I think the beginning up through Carmitage was great. You have you find out where Strange is in his life. You find out she's getting love life is,
you know, and how he's dealing with being alone, and you know, he's not the Sorcerer Supreme anymore. He doesn't bow to Wong. They have this fight. They find the girl. Now they escalate to Carmitage. First, you find out that it's Wanda. He goes to Wanda first. Okay, so they have the fight with the octopus monster. Then he goes to Wanda, finds out what's going on with Wanda, that she's the villain. Then it goes to Carmitage, and you get to Carmitage, and I feel like I've watched an entire crescendo, you know, climax of a 3-act film in that first act. Right? And then they go to the other dimension, and now it's almost like you've started over, and everything resets in a weird way.
Because then they've got to, they've got to go through
and now you're like going, oh God, you feel like, oh God, we got to start this whole fucking thing over again, almost. And I think that's what you're seeing, and I think that's or at least that's what I think I'm seeing, listening to you talk about what you saw.
Again, it just got to me that when they got to that new dimension, they stood on that thing where it kind of gave you your most precious memory.
Was the dumbest fucking thing in the entire movie.
And again, that was nothing but plot exposition. You know, that you had to put in the fact that she had two mothers. Again, let's not say it was woke, but you know, she had two mothers, and then she got stung by the bee, and she opened the portal, and she lost her two mothers, and then that's what sucked her through, and everything else. But again, it was kind of. The whole machine just absolutely made zero sense to me, because I said in my review that, you know, imagine you stand on it and it's your most precious memory is the first time you got off with your nan or something or whatever it is, but everybody around can see it going, oh really? You know, and it was just, you know, when she stood on it and everything else, people weren't walking by going, what the hell was that? What, you know, did you just see that? She just opened it, you know, and people just carried on walking by, and like I say, it was nothing there but a plot exposition.
That is somebody trying to be too clever by half. They're trying to say, look, exposition is boring. We can't just have somebody just tell what her family history is and do a flashback or something like that. We're going to come up with this because they're in a different dimension, so let's have some fun with it. Let's do a memory machine. And I think there's something to somebody trying something that they thought might be a little weirder, might be a little bit more interesting, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. I applaud them for trying something different, but that doesn't mean it was successful.
In the future, just have the actor telling the story and let them
I would have been
act well.
fine with narrating a flashback. I would have been fine with that.
Yeah. But again, it's kind of one of those things where, actors have talked about. I mean, just this is completely springing to my mind, but the story of when Phoebe Cates tells about what happened to her father in Gremlins. There's no flashback to that, but it's a wonderful...
what? Wouldn't it have been awesome if there was? Seeing Santa Claus with his neck broken, stuck in a chimney.
But again, it's, that scene really sticks with you because Phoebe Cates does a great job with telling that story, and that's kind of all you needed. You didn't need somebody to stand on this machine to then show the entire world what happened to you as a kid with your mum's disappearing.
Yeah. It was... I think the visual was fine. I was fine with the visual scene in explaining where she'd been. The method of seeing the visual, that stupid memory machine, was dumb as shit. So
Mannix has just made a good point there. First of all, he says at least it wasn't two fathers. It could have been Mannix. But he also said showing the past of the main character is not really super new, though. And again, that's something else I'm kind of... I'm not getting bored with, but there was something else I watched the other day. I can't think what it was now, but it was like a murder mystery or something. Oh no, I think it might have been what's it called? Poirot. Death on the Nile, the new Death on the Nile. And again, you kind of had to have this backstory of, how he knew this and how he knew that and how he fell in love and how he grew his moustache. And it's just kind of, seriously, can't we just have people who are good at their job?
Like Solo.
Yeah, exactly. Just there are people who are just good at their job. There's no underlying flashbacks that we have which then build up to the crescendo where it helps them solve the case. They just happen to be good at it. Everybody has to have a backstory now which enhances them to make, and it's kind of, no, we don't need that anymore. Like I say, showing the main characters, past, it could have just been the fact that it was a complete and utter accident and she ended up in the multiverse. That was it.
Let me take a devil's advocate view here for you, just to get your opinion. I was listening to Call Me Chatbo, and he did an interview with that Hollywood exec that is doing these.
Oh yeah.
It's recently become kind of popular.
Yeah.
Anyway, he did an interview with Vic Manminio. I can't pronounce his last name. But he was the guy that did the Star Trek Continues, which is a YouTube show of about 10 or 12 episodes of a fan-made Star Trek project. But it's really well done, really well written. Right. And you could call it a season 4 of Star Trek, the original series, that kind of works its way towards Star Trek, the motion picture. The point being is that he said that he wanted to... that in the 60s, James Kirk was a hero who was very good at his job, but if you think about it, you really don't know that much about him. He wasn't very human in the show in some ways. He made good decisions and he knew what he was doing, and he certainly was well acted, and he was a strong character. But in Star Trek Continues, he wanted to humanize him a little bit, and part of that was going through some of his past, and not like his childhood, but like some of the things that happened in the past episodes of the original series and things like that, and what motivated him, and that made him more relatable. And I thought about that, and I thought about, we don't really get to know Jim Kirk as a person until the movies. In the movies, in the first movie, we find that he wants to get back into the captain's chair after being an admiral riding a desk for 2 years, and he pulls some somewhat shaky ethically moves to get himself back in the captain's chair to be to take on V'ger. Then in the second movie, we really get into him being older and all that kind of stuff. The third movie, we'll find out that his friends are what really motivates him more than even being a captain. The fourth movie, we see him struggling to get, his family back together and to get past, we see that motivation, him trying to reconnect with Spock and those kinds of things. Fifth movie went into a little bit of his past, and why does God need with a starship? And then the sixth movie, it was his hatred of Klingons because they killed his son. So all six of those movies dealt in with Kirk as a person, which could be argued doesn't happen very much in the original series. And in order to do that, you have to understand his past and you have to understand his motivations. Now, the good thing about how they did that was that we understood Kirk's motivations because we saw it happen in previous episodes or previous movies. We saw his son get killed in Star Trek 3. We now know why he's motivated to hate Klingons so much in Star Trek 6, right? Because we've seen all that. If I'm hearing you correctly, it's more like you're taking an established character and then you're shoehorning in, like Han Solo, right?
I wouldn't say shoehorning him, but what I'm saying is, I mean, listening to you talk about like the original Star Trek series, you didn't need to know Kirk's motivation for being a captain. He was just him and the crew were out exploring the universe and they were meeting different planets and different aliens, and that was kind of it. Whereas I think with like the modern Star Treks, it seems to be that everybody's on wasn't it in Discovery that somebody was saying that everybody's on the Enterprise for a reason, and it's because of their past and all this kind of thing. They've all got to share their feelings and everything else, and it's not kind of just, I think with a lot of programs, not just this, but like with Strange and everything else, there's always kind of, you can't just have somebody just doing their job. Like in the original Star Trek series, you had a group of people that were just going along and doing their job. Now you have to have people doing their job, but this person's doing their job because their father died when they were 6, and this person's doing their job because their dog got run over. And it's kind of like all these people have got to have now backstories which have got to be expanded upon, and it's just kind of, we don't need it. You could just literally just have the characters doing their job.
Yes. However, in Star Trek The Next Generation, you definitely got to know those characters as humans as well as, now they didn't have all, tragic backstories, I think Riker was in a fight with his father, just didn't get along with him, which they kind of resolved. And you knew a little bit about Picard's past. You got to know his past, especially in the fabulous episode called Tapestry, where we find out how he got his heart. I mean, we knew it because he told the whole story, but he tried to change that, and it changed him from the man he was into a kind of a guy who was afraid to take chances. So, I mean, there was a humanization that happened in the Next Gen that wasn't really there in the original series. Now, I understand, that storytelling from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, it matured over time. Characters, the way we wrote characters and everything all matured different, So some of that was just, that's the times we lived in, right? That's why they wrote Star Trek the way they did in 1966. But I guess I'm because it's easy to say, oh, they're just trying to be woke or they're lazy and everything else. And I guess I'm trying to say, well, is it that they're trying to humanize these characters a little bit, but they just are not skilled enough as screenwriters to do it properly? Is that the conclusion that maybe we're reaching here?
I guess so. Like I say, back in the day, again, nobody thought in the original Star Treks of sort of saying, okay, Kirk and his dad had got into a fight and blah, 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 whatever it might be that, that might have happened. It was just about the storytelling of what was going to happen with each episode. Right. There was no kind of, another thing that happens with a lot with these series nowadays is that you've got an 8-part series, whatever it is, it all leads to somewhere. Whereas with Star Trek, that kind of, the original Star Trek, there was never kind of like a plan of an arc of, we've met this guy in the first episode, but in the last episode, he's got to come back and all this kind of stuff. Again,
Lost.
We do live in...
That really screwed up TV.
Yeah. But again, with it, it's kind of, I just miss the days of just the plain old storytelling of just, this is the story. I don't need to hear about the backstory. Like I say with Solo, I don't need to know about Han's background and everything else. It was just Han was a character we got introduced to in A New Hope, and he was great, and we loved him, and he had Chewie, and he had the Falcon, and that was it. You don't need to hear about the backstory about how he got there and, his best friend shot him and blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. It's just, but we seem to these days, it all seems to have, everybody needs to be carrying around emotional baggage as they're going on their adventures. And I don't think it's necessary.
I think some of that's on us to a certain extent. And I don't mean you and me specifically, but just this, I think all of us have been guilty, especially in the 90s and 2000s, the early rise of the internet, of deifying all these characters, maybe more so than we should have. And now that group of writers is taking that in there.
I think with like social media, everybody has to share everything. Yeah. That if you've had a traumatic childhood, you've got to share that online and tell people that you've had a traumatic. And again, it's kind of, no offense to you people, but I don't care. I've had difficulties growing up in my childhood, but I don't need to feel the need to share it with everybody. And again, like I say, I think the society in which we live and the writing that we see within movies and everything else has changed, and I don't see it for the better. I'm quite happy to just enjoy a good character for a good character. I don't need to know their backstory about what they do and haven't had in the past and how they've grown up.
Yeah, I'm in general agreement with you here. I'm kind of, like I said, I'm kind of taking some devil's advocate because it's so easy to say, oh, they're lazy, they're woke. That's all you have to think. That's, and we just move on. And we just dismiss all this crap because of that. And I think some of it is that. Some of it is laziness and wokeness. But I think there's, when I listened to Vic talk about how he was deifying James Kirk. He saw him as a father figure because he didn't have a dad when he was growing up, and he discovered Star Trek in an apartment with his mom, and James Kirk meant a lot to him in those early days. And I think his take on the character was great. I think he did a good job. But I think that there's others and the reasons why that's something we probably we're not going to figure out on this stream, but I think there's others that either misunderstand.
Not without Shawnee,
misunderstand the character or take too many of their own insecurities and problems and put them into the character so that they become more relatable to that person instead of understanding what made the character relatable in the first place.
I mean, with it though, it's kind of coming back to Strange, that the whole thing of this memory thing that they stand on and everything else. How many people are going to identify with America Chavez, for what happened to her in that past? I didn't have two mums. I don't remember them ever getting sucked into a portal into the multiverse. And all this kind of thing.
Where'd you grow up, man?
In England.
Portals all over the place here.
But with it, I mean, like I say, it's kind of, yes, I can understand to a certain extent that if somebody has had an abusive father and then they see a character who's had an abusive father, they can identify with that character, and then that character overcomes things and stuff. I can completely get that. But what I'm saying is this particular character of American Chavez in Doctor Strange, there was nothing about her backstory that kind of thought, it doesn't identify with anyone. Nobody got stung by a bee and opened a portal to another world. So I mean, again, it was just kind of, I don't know. It was a scene that completely missed me. It really.
Here's a question for you. She's the only one in all the entire multiverses. Is that a special snowflake thing? She's the only person. She's the only America Chavez in all of the multiverse. Remember, because she says.
Oh yeah, she says she's looked for others and she couldn't find them.
She can't find any, and that they don't exist except for her.
Right. Snowflake? Again, I don't know whether you'd say snowflake or not. I suppose, but again, it was weird that she sort of said that she'd been to 72 different multiverses and she'd looked around and stuff. And to me, when it was kind of like they were looking for the Stephen Strange in her universe, or in the universe her and Doctor Strange were in, they were just literally walking to where his museum was. And I'm thinking, right, so how much have you actually searched these other universes?
Well, there was a reason why she said that. If you remember, and I was curious what you thought of this. Your dreams are what's happening to other cells in other multiverses, right?
Right. And so
So,
she says she doesn't dream. But how does she know that? I suppose Strange,
well, I
one of
think
the other Strange.
Wong made a point of it. It's like, yeah, if you so that dream where you're naked in front of your client, it's like, yeah, that happened somewhere. That was actually the most disconcerting thing of all the weirdness I saw. It's like, ugh. I don't want to even talk about the shit that's happened in my dreams.
I actually dreamed the other day. This is just off that subject. I met Elon Musk and I asked him for money, and he wrote me out a check, and I thought, oh, this is going to be great because I can actually pay off all my debts and everything else. It was for $2,000, and I was really angry at him to think to myself, oh, 2,000, you've got all that money and you gave me $2,000, you tight bastard.
Hey, he didn't get the richest man in the world by giving it away, you know.
Anyway.
Zap says we're forgetting Journey to Babel from TOS. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that they never went into some character. In fact, Spock got a lot more character moments, which is why he was much more popular. Because him being an alien, you could delve into a lot of different things with him that I don't think generally happened in the rest of the cast. I mean, certainly you didn't even know Uhura's first name until it finally went canon in 2009, and you only knew it from books or something. I mean, we didn't know shit about that woman. Or Chekhov knew very little about Sulu. He was the only one that got a little bit of development by being a captain. Scotty, he was just drunk most of the time. So, I mean, it's... I'm just saying...
Are you saying all Scottish people drink? How dare you?
Yeah, well... Yes. I mean, the next gen cast all got fleshed out for the most part, and we got to know them. We got to know, especially guys like Worf but even Geordi to a certain extent. Data, of course, Riker, Picard, Troy, Crusher. They all got growth over the course of the series in one form or another. Some more than others, of course, but. That didn't really happen in the original series. It didn't start happening till the movies, where there. And you're saying, well, there was Journey to Babel. Well, that doesn't really blow my entire thesis out of the water. It was one episode that kind of went into a little bit of Spock's past, and that was about it.
We are needlessly getting off topic as per usual.
It's fascinating as we've gone down some of these roads, actually.
We're going to get back on track. You say this, NGO, but you are not criticise aliens because of their flat characters. I've seen, it's not that it's flat characters, I've just seen characters developed much better without knowing all of their history and everything else. And that one particular scene in Doctor Strange, again, I sat there rolling my eyes at the two mums, and I was rolling my eyes at the whole fact that all these people are walking past, watching her, treasured memory, and it was just kind of... And it didn't really explain about what memories it was digging up, because apparently to her it was kind of the worst memory she had of losing her mums. So we've recorded that onto DVD for you, so you can record, you can live it forever and ever and ever. And it's like, no, oh goodness me. Anyway, so what happens then after that? So then they find
Time did not shoehorn in a character's backstory that much. Zap.
Now I know how Sean feels when we talk about Star Wars.
See, I got my bases covered. I can do both, right?
We are sticking on topic with Doctor Strange. So basically, Wanda, or Scarlet Witch as she's now known because she says Wanda doesn't exist anymore, wants America Chavez so that she can steal her power, so that she can head to a new universe where her kids are still alive. And that's kind of all she wants, really. Like you say, there's a good motivation for the bad guy that, she just wants to have her kids that are alive again. You can kind of sympathize with her.
You can. I think that the problems I had with Wanda is when they correctly pointed out some flaws in her plans. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to just wipe out the woman that is their mother?
Yeah.
What about them? What about that woman? I mean, and she wouldn't answer it, and she just didn't want to think about it until it was right in her face, and the kids were frightened of her. Didn't see her as the mother. They saw her as a monster hurting their mother.
That was quite well done. I thought
I
was
thought
quite
so
handled.
too. And that the Wanda of that universe said, I couldn't make out what she said, but I think it had something to do with forgiveness. And I kept I do root for Wanda, and I think Elizabeth Olsen plays her well, and I think she has had the most shit happen to her over her life. So this step, this next step in her character feels genuine to me, especially after the events of WandaVision. And I did like that they did not shy away from WandaVision. They said that it was bad.
Yeah.
Like, in fact, everybody else, the problem I have with WandaVision is really how everybody else is reacting. It's like, oh, you sacrificed so much, Wanda. And the writers are saying, no, she's a fucking villain.
Yeah, she's completely psychotic.
Yeah. And Doctor Strange is like not mad. Nobody seems to be mad at her about this whole mess. And then it turns out, no, she really is a villain. And this is one case where the writers are actually smarter than the people in universe.
Yeah.
Because they're all wanting to forgive her. And, we know how much you sacrificed. And they're all being nice to her. And it's like, no, we're going to make her a full-on villain. I mean, she killed a lot of people. I don't know. I think there is a redemption that can happen with her. But I hope they make it tough. And I hope they make it somehow she has to save the multiverse. I mean, she's obviously the most powerful person in the MCU right now. I don't think even Captain Marvel could match her. Well, we saw, assuming that the Captain Marvel in the Illuminati verse had the same powers as the one in our universe, we're going to say nope, she's going to kick her ass.
So with it then, I mean, another thing that we didn't touch on from the whole point from the beginning is the end of No Way Home. He seems to tear these realities apart, but that's barely even touched upon in this, is it? It's literally sort of like, oh, that was months ago.
Yeah,
So whether they're going to then try and sort of do another Spider-Man, whether he has to deal with those kind of things or something, or...
I think, well, first of all, so there's several things here that I think they're laying the groundwork for. One, you had Loki splitting up all the timelines, which will start up a big multiverse again. There's that part. They've been, No Way Home showed that there are multiverses out there, and they all are somewhat different, and that was an excuse to bring in the different Spider-Man from the past few. The Raimi and the Andrew Garfield.
Yeah.
And now you have the Multiverse of Madness and that kind of stuff. So they're setting up this whole multiversal war kind of thing going on. I think the pandemic kind of wrecked these two movies because I think that Multiverse of Madness was supposed to come out first. But it was shooting in the middle of the pandemic, whereas No Way Home kind of shot closer to the end of the pandemic and was able to get done faster. And so I think what was supposed to happen is that Multiverse of Madness was doing its thing. And once it got done, that whatever he learned or whatever happened would have led into the multiverse in Spider-Man No Way Home. And I think since those two got swapped, that broke. And because you can kind of see some, like you said it yourself in Multiverse of Madness, they kind of hand wave what happened in No Way Home, and in Spider-Man, I feel like the whole memory thing for a multiverse, those two don't mesh to me. Like waving away everybody's memory creates holes in the multiverse. I don't see that connection there. And that feels like something they hastily wrote to make Spider-Man work.
I think the problem that they've got now is that they have created something which they can't not contain as such, but it's sort of it makes me think of like Back to the Future. How with Back to the Future, don't get me wrong, brilliant film, love it. But if you think about the science too much, none of it makes sense. You know, the whole none of it makes any sense whatsoever.
That's a very
shape,
lighthearted adventure. I mean,
no,
your time machine is a fucking DeLorean. Obviously, they're not taking this shit seriously.
I know, but what I'm saying is with this like multiverse now, they've kind of opened this can of worms where they're kind of like, right, no, wait, so we can have him from this place, but if he sneezes, that means that, and it's kind of, they've created this thing now. It's kind of almost like as well, maybe like with George Lucas with the whole trying to do the prequels and everything else, that he tried to write how Anakin became Vader, but it just seemed too complicated for him, and he kind of just failed in the execution of it. And I think this whole multiverse now, because it is so unbelievably complicated, I just don't see how anybody is going to sit there and sort of say, do you know what, right, this is what needs to happen and everything else for it to make any kind of logical sense. There's always going to be massive holes that you're going to be able to pick in it.
Yeah, and I'm willing to accept some of that. I mean, I think it's just a hazard of trying to write this kind of stuff. I do think there is some, like in Endgame, they went back in time, but in order to go back in time, what you're really doing is going to a different universe, technically, right? And then they had to collapse all the branches of the universe back into one. That's when Cap went back and put the stones back where they, so it wouldn't change time, but then they had technically a different Thanos come through into our universe or into our time.
Yeah.
And now you have a different Gamora running around, who's not essentially the same character, but kind of the same character. And is that a multiverse or is that something else? Or, so I don't think they've really answered that very well. And they've complicated it with Loki, now Doctor Strange and No Way Home. So I even to a certain extent Shang-Chi, because there were some questions about the rings and where they came from and whether they were in our universe. So maybe they have a plan. I don't know. Like I said, I was pleased.
in 15 films time, they're going to say something and go, oh, that's why the Strange was right. Okay, now I got it now.
I don't know if I'll be dead by the time they actually wrap all this up or not. I do think, like, WandaVision, I was disappointed in the end because it made her seem like a hero. And instead with Multiverse of Madness, they said, no, she's not a hero, she's a villain. She's a broken person. We understand her motivations. You have some sympathy and all that stuff. But she's a villain. She's a bad guy. And she's taken that next step from what she did in WandaVision to now just outright killing people. So I appreciate that. I like I said, it made WandaVision better. So maybe they have some plans that I need to let the whole thing kind of work its way out. But there are
is it kind of one of those? I was going to say, is it one of those scenarios where it's like, no, don't think about it too hard. Don't think about it too hard. All right,
it's just Austin Powers. It's like, oh, there's a lot of time stuff, and just don't think about it too hard. And he looks right at the audience, goes, and that goes for you too.
Exactly. But again, it seems like they are creating like I say, a beast which they can't just seem to control, and that you are going to need an incredible amount of writers and people that are going to pick up on it and sort of say, right, no, hang on a minute, this needs to happen. No, because back in 2005 we said this, so that's got to happen and that kind of thing. You've got to have somebody who can stay on top of all of the sort of tendrils that are flapping around.
If they get writers that will concentrate on the details and really concentrate on character building and that kind of stuff, and if Disney wises up and says, I don't care about current day politics anymore. This is our bread and butter, and you're going to make it work. And you're not going to put in all this, because it was greatly
That's a
reduced.
Big if.
Yeah, the message, no more the message. The message was greatly reduced in this movie. I'm not saying it wasn't there. I'm not saying it wasn't there. I said it was reduced. You had one moment where she had her two mothers. That was the worst thing.
No, like I say, you gender swap Captain America.
I see that as different universe, trying different things, and with an established character that I like. I'm sorry, that's not. I don't think it's the same.
I will admit that the what if of that was good in the way that it was done. Like you say, that what if the machine is all there, ready to go, but what's his name? Steve doesn't get in it. No.
It's
No,
Peggy
that
Carter.
is different.
She's British. She has a Union Jack flag. I mean, she's not a Captain America. She's Captain Britain. God damn it!
Yeah.
What do you want? You should be happy about that. You get England's finally getting representation in the MCU.
No. You'd think I'd be proud of the British flag, but I'm really not.
Apparently not. God damn, where's your patriotism? Fuck.
Was she Captain America? Well, no, Mannix, because she did have the English flag on the shield.
Carter. That's how she was designated in the What If thing.
And
I like Haley Atwell. I'm not gonna lie, I like her.
Haley Atwell in that outfit is something that does not disappoint.
No. I didn't see Captain Carter as woke. Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, that is iffy. That could go either way. That's iffy. I'll be honest with you. I thought Mordo in this was absolutely useless and was not necessary, and just gave him a chance to do a silly fight that meant nothing because we haven't really resolved anything in the 616 universe as Mordo. We have no idea where he's at. So all of that was just dumb. It just that was just useless. And I really like Chiwetel Ejiofor. I've liked him ever since I saw him in Firefly or Serenity.
He's unfortunately one of those names which is always comes out different every time.
Ain't it?
It is, yeah. The guy from Firefly. Yeah. So I mean, overall, I still think that the movie was very just mildly below average. I certainly don't think it was one of the best MCU movies, which I've seen comments flying around on Twitter and so forth. It was entertaining. I mean, I must admit, I went in very negatively ultimately because I wasn't bothered about seeing it, but I knew we were talking about it today. I had a gift voucher which I had to use up, so I thought, why not? And from that respect, I'm sort of pleased, that I did go and see it. And like I say, it was entertaining, but it just wasn't. It's time for the whole MCU to just slowly wind down for a bit, give itself a bit of time, just have a break for a bit, and then come back with something new.
You fool. You naive fool. That turnip is going to get all of its blood squeezed out of it, buddy.
Yeah.
I was more optimistic mostly because I like Sam Raimi. I wanted to see a Sam Raimi movie, and I think I'm somewhat disappointed because I think I got half of a Sam Raimi movie.
I was just going to say, where would you put this in the sort of Sam Raimi 1 to 10 list sort of thing?
About a 5, because half of it was clearly MCU nonsense. Trying to build up things, work us into the next movie. The little jokes and the little, snipping at each other and all that kind of stuff. Some of the Sam Raimi touches were in there and I really liked it, but in all, you kind of like, in the end, when you really break it down, for all the visual weirdness, and there was some, it really is kind of a paint by numbers adventure, and some of the fights and everything just kind of dragged it down.
They just happened.
They happened, and they didn't really add to the story, and in the end, you kind of knew where it was going to go. There were things I liked, there were things I thought were kind of cool, but it didn't really do anything to stand out. I agree with you. It didn't do anything to stand out above any other MCU movie, and maybe a little bit below. It got 75%, I think, on Rotten Tomatoes. I think the audience was somewhere around the same 70-75%.
Funny enough, I've spoken to a few friends who have been to see it, and they all said that they really enjoyed it. And then we've discussed it, and I've kind of, I don't want to say drag them down to my viewpoint, but I just sort of said it was perfectly average. I say, that was, there was nothing outstanding, but there was nothing completely bland about it. It was just somewhere slap bang in the middle.
It had a few like 1 or 2 moments, Sam Raimi weirdness moments, that kind of poked their head above just for a second, just for a minute or two, and then it went back down, and then it just became, regular.
It's not as if they were going to let him Evil Dead it though, was it?
Well, they did. They did get he did get his moment to yank an eyeball out of something. He loves doing that kind of stuff. So the eyeball came out of the big creature. That was fun.
I was just going to say,
stab him through the eyeball. I had to yank the eyeball of the stalk out of the creature. I like that.
I was going to say, if you were going to rate it as a Sam Raimi movie, where would you put it in between Spider-Man 2 and Oz and the Great and Powerful? Because I think you've got the two mixes there of probably his best movie and then probably his worst one.
I would put it right in between, probably. Closer to the Oz, the Great and Powerful than Spider-Man 2. I like Drag Me to Hell better. And of course Evil Dead 2 and things like that. But it's adequate.
It's kind of funny how with like Evil Dead, in Evil Dead he had the chance to, he had the money and everything else, but he kind of just was let loose to do what he wanted. And when he does that, he is brilliant at it. But when you are working for Disney and you're working for Marvel, that they can't just let somebody off the reins and say, "Here's the money, go and make a film, bring it back to us 18 months all finished." They are gonna have that creative control over it, and it's a kind of a shame, like with Ant-Man, that it wasn't made by Edgar Wright, because I would have loved to have seen what Edgar Wright would have done with Ant-Man, but there were creative differences, which means he fell out the project. The same with Colin Trevorrow over Star Wars and all these kind of things. That they have these creative differences, and you kind of wonder what could have been if Disney wasn't in charge.
Well, they were trying some different things, especially in Phase 1 and a bit in Phase 2. Winter Soldier, I still think, is the tops of all of them. And through the 3 phases, they were trying out different things. They knew that they wanted to go. They had a plan, and it all worked. Now it's a giant machine collapsing under the weight of its own canon. And I think they are trying to do different things with the multiverse, but they just are. It's just this lumbering giant machine, and a guy like Sam Raimi, I don't think he can do whatever he wants because it has to fit in all this other stuff, and this is why I was on board. That you guys weren't, I don't think, but this is why I was on board with the removal of the Star Wars canon when The Force Awakens came out, to dump everything but the movies. And maybe I think the animated Clone Wars show at the time, because it was just so much, and trying to fit into that, it just collapses under its own weight. Now, if I had known that they would replace it with much, much worse, of course, but I don't think that the decision was wrong at the time. And I think with the MCU, honestly, they are where they are now. They got to finish up this Phase 4 stuff and have the multiversal war, whatever's going to happen there. Kang, I don't know, whatever's going to happen. But after that, they should call it quits and reboot the whole fucking thing. And do it with the X-Men maybe and the Fantastic Four. Maybe do it, kind of get back to its roots, have the Fantastic Four be the first movie, then a Spider-Man, then an X-Men, kind of go along the way the 60s did, bring out Thor and Hulk later instead of earlier. I don't know. I'm just saying that getting back to basics and just reboot, and maybe that's what the multiversal war is about. When it's all over, that they'll just reboot the fucking universe.
Wolverine never existed. Everybody else that you all loved, Tony Stark was never played by Robert Downey Jr. and everybody else was just a nice big reboot. It's kind of weird that I saw the other day that Barbara Broccoli has said that with James Bond that they are going to. It's going to be a while before a new James Bond comes out. And I kind of got the impression that she's just thinking, do you know what? I've got enough money. I'm fine. There doesn't need to be a new James Bond film rushed out just because off the back of No Time to Die. And so, again, it's the right decision to just take a step back, just sort of let it fade into the memory a little bit and then do something with it again at a later stage.
Yeah, James Bond doesn't have the weight of canon quite like Star Trek, Star Wars, the MCU. Most of those, I mean, you could tell that in most of those movies, they were wiping their ass with continuity half the time,
Yeah.
and they didn't give a shit. And each of the movies was their own self-contained little adventure, and there was very, very little continuity that went through it. Now, then when the Daniel Craig's came along, then they started introducing a lot more continuity and canon and everything. And I don't know, it was a very mixed bag. Let's put it that way. Those 4 or 5, what was it, 5 movies? They were very mixed bag.
Again, coming back to with like Star Wars, I always got the impression that George Lucas kind of oversaw everything that was going on with the Star Wars universe, even like the EU canon and all this kind of stuff. So like the Zan books, the Thrawn trilogy and stuff was all part of the canon. And again, what Disney then sort of thought was, well, we can't just have, we can't just make the Thrawn books because, we need to make up our own new canon. And if you've got somebody who's overseeing all of that canon and saying, right, this is where this fits and everything else, it works together brilliantly. But then as soon as you lose somebody like that, it's kind of just, people can do whatever they want now, and it just goes and ruins everything, as we've just seen.
Yes and no. I mean, it's not removing old canon and trying again that really bothers me. I think that can and should be done to make things fresh and new again. But what you replace it with has got to be better, more streamlined. It's got to be done better. I mean, with Star Trek, they're doing canon and they're changing everything, so it all sucks. And then you've got like the EU. If you remember when the Star Wars EU started, we had the 3 movies. Even the Ewok Adventures or the cartoon droids or the cartoon Ewoks or some of that, it wasn't really considered canon. You had the 3 movies. That was about it. I think there was a smattering of books that may or may not have been canon. The EU didn't start until the Zahn trilogy, in which case that's when Lucasfilm decided to first get the movie started again, because they knew they wanted to do episode 1, 2, and 3 in the future, and he knew he wanted to do the 20th anniversary and special edition, and this was a good way to get people to do a lot of stuff. But they set down the ground rules in '91 about the EU and how things needed to relate to each other and all that. And Zahn was the first guy that did it, and he came up with a story because there was such a dearth of stories from Star Wars at that time. I mean, they tossed the Marvel comics in the dumpster. I know that at that time. So, take that for what it's worth. So it wasn't the first time they threw away established stories. But then after the Zahn trilogy came out, then they came out one after the other. And I tell you, the quality of some of that stuff was not good. So some of it was great. I like the Dark Force.
I must admit, I
comics.
I haven't gone much into the EU. I think I probably only read the Thrawn trilogy, which I thought was, I don't remember
brilliant.
much about it, but I remember it was great because, I mean, even the fact they brought back the Emperor, but they did it in a much more linear way as opposed to Palpatine's back somehow.
Yeah, they did it in that comic, Dark Empire. And they did the clone stuff, but that all tied in. It all tied in together. And those early days in the '90s, they had some good stuff, and then it just kept going and going and going. And it just, you had, they were killing off Chewbacca. They were doing, they had the kids, and then the kids went to the dark side, and then they got killed, and then it all just got to be a tangled mess, and not all of it was great. The Zahn stuff was great. Some of the early stuff was great, but I remember like the Jedi Academy trilogy where Han and Lando kept betting the Falcon back and forth and kept losing it to each other, and I was like, oh, Jesus, what is going on here? These two haven't grown an inch. Is what you're telling me after all they've been through?
Yeah, because again, like you say with Han, he goes through, I don't want to say the biggest of the character arcs, but I mean, he goes through a major character arc from 4 to 6, and like you say, at the end of it, just not learn anything at all.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
So I mean, they took the worst aspects of the EU and they replicated that, where Han is now a broken down smuggler, trying to pathetically do the same shit he did in his 30s. And it just is, why is, like, at least in the EU, he was married to Leia, they had the kids, and they were working in the New Republic together as heads, or heroes, or very influential. Like, I think Leia became the president or the chancellor of the New Republic, and Han was he had resigned his commission, but he was a well-respected man that did a lot of great things for the Republic.
I did read a good one the other day, or I think it was a video of somebody who broke down one of the films. I can't remember, but they were saying about how they never introduced Mara Jade into the new movies because Mara Jade ends up marrying Luke, and they have a kid together. And again, they kind of wanted they made up Rey because she needs to be a strong, independent, strong woman, and not somebody who's then going to marry the matriarch, and has to become a wife to somebody to better herself and everything else. And again, it was just.
Well, that wasn't. I mean, if that's what people got out of Mara Jade's arc, then they don't understand how stories or characters work. They don't understand.
No. What I mean is we unfortunately live in a time where Hollywood is being controlled by the woke community who are trying to please everyone. And we've just seen the announcement. If you go to the last movie Outpost, the new Doctor Who has just been announced. And again, to me, the first thing that it sprung into my mind was ticking all the boxes. BBC are ticking all the boxes.
I haven't seen it. Let me take a look real quick.
I can't remember his name because he's got an unusual name. But basically, the new Doctor Who is the gay black guy from Sex Education.
Of course he is.
Nukti Guata. Gatwa. Nukti Guatwa. But again, as soon as I saw it, I thought, there we go. This is the time that we're living in now, that they're not making Doctor Who for the Doctor Who fans. They are making programs which conform to all the standards of trying to please people who will never be happy with what you do. Ever. They will always be angry at it.
I don't, on the surface, just on the surface, casting a woman or a black guy for Doctor Who wouldn't bother me if you felt the stories were in line with what you expect out of Doctor Who. Because, they say, well, Doctor Who changes from one iteration to another. He gets reborn. I'm not very steeped in the Doctor Who lore. I've thought about maybe start watching it, but I don't know where to start because you got like 75 seasons of it. And I don't even know where to begin. But I mean, if it was like, yeah, he's black, or it's a woman, but that's as far as it goes, and everything else is about Doctor Who being Doctor Who, I really wouldn't have a problem with any of this. But I know why they're doing it, because they think I'm a racist. They're doing it, and then the rest of the stories are all about driving home the fact that this is a woman or this is a black. I mean, I think she says in the Doctor Who, she says, it's like, you're Doctor Who? I thought it was a man. It's like, I got an upgrade. Like, oh, fuck off. It's so cringy. And it's like, everything is about your immutable characteristics being the most important part of you. And that's the part that makes me sick to my stomach.
Yeah. Again, it's funny because I've watched some older movies. I've been having a whole thing of 80s movies. And the actual... I don't want to say woke because it's a new generational thing, but when you see characters who are black or they're strong female women or whatever they are in these older movies, it's fine. You don't think about it. It's only now that in my mind I'm thinking, oh, it's a black guy, and it's kind of, no, back in the day they were just making, they were just putting actors in who were good at their job. It doesn't matter what race, color, creed, gender, whatever they were. It was just, they were just good at their job. But nowadays, you don't know whether these people are good at their job or not. Is it just the fact that they are just ticking the boxes because they have to pander to everybody?
Well, I talked about this with Aggie on the Star Trek video, which those of you who've watched that, thank you. It's doing quite well. I appreciate that. We will do a sequel to that. I said that Gene Roddenberry specifically took a black lady and an Asian person and a Scotsman and a Russian guy and a very diverse cast. And he did put them in there for diversity. But the reason why he did that was to show that your immutable characteristics are immaterial to your ability to do a job, which was a message that was definitely needed in 1966.
Yeah.
Okay. Now they are doing the exact same thing that Gene was doing. They're picking people specifically for their characteristics, but they're doing it to show that it's much more important. Your immutable characteristics are much more important to your worth as a human being. So conversely, what they're saying is that my immutable characteristics, my being white and straight and a man, make me less of a person. That's the message. And that's the message that I fundamentally disagree with. And so, and you have to be very clear about why you object to a black woman or a black man or something being made as Doctor Who. It's not that you object to that. It's you object to their motivations and what they see as the most important parts of being a human being, which is I fundamentally disagree with. And I hate it. I hate all of it because I know why they're doing it. I know what they think of me, and I know what they think is important. And it's completely the polar opposite of what Gene thought when he put those people in there. He was trying to say that these characteristics are not important for your worth as a human being. And we lost that somewhere along the lines. We lost that.
That's the thing, is like I say, is, you know, watching some of these older programs and older movies and stuff like that, you just don't notice it. But the mindset that we're in today, it immediately sort of sets up, I don't want to say like a barrier, but you immediately think to yourself, you know, oh, this is, oh dear, we've lost Madding. Too much woke talk, guys. Well, it's because it's prevalent everywhere, and unfortunately, we are living in a world where,
I mean, this is entertainment now, guys. I hate to say it, but this is the entertainment that we have to deal with now. If we don't speak out about it a little bit, I mean, I'm not trying to get into who you should vote for. I'm talking about the entertainment that goes into your brain, that gets put into your eyeballs, is subtly putting in all this stuff that says that you are worthless as a human being because of what you look like and how you were born. I'm sorry. That's a bad message, and it's not political.
It's a bad message, and it's a bad message for anybody, but especially for kids who are growing up at the moment. You know, and it's also a message that says,
it's confusing the hell out of them.
Well, not just that, but also if you shout loud enough, you can change things, and it's kind of that's not what the world is about. You know, if people are offended by something, then there's nothing wrong with that. We're also taught that sticks and stones may break my bones and names will never hurt me, but that doesn't seem to be the case these days. You know, and we are getting a little bit off the point, and we are coming up to our 2 hours as well. So I think we can probably call it wraps here. We've certainly not.
That, I would like to talk about the economic problems of Bosnia, and how I believe that their monetary policy is not good for the rest of the Europe. I couldn't keep it going.
Sometimes you start a conversation and there's your brain goes, no, nothing. Sorry.
Stop. Just give it up. This ain't working. Okay. Sound the alarm. Hit the eject button. Pull the ripcord.
Okay, do you want to wrap up for us then?
Oh, God, yes. So happy Mother's Day. At least for all the mothers around the world. And,
well, in America, it's not over here.
Well, especially for you, George, you mother. This has been another live stream from Lastmovieoutpost.com. You can hit us on our website where we have all the latest news and reviews. We are the cool news now. You can reach me at Drunken Yoda1 on Twitter, and you can reach George here at Not George Lucas 1 on Twitter. We are also at Movie Outpost on Twitter. You can email us. We do use that. Contact us at lastmovieoutpost.com. And
if you're going to send a carrier pigeon, make sure it's a plump and juicy one.
That's right. we will also do smoke signals within a certain radius. So we have a lot going on the YouTube channel. So please like, share, subscribe. We would love for you to let the inner tubes know that we're out here, and we have got lots more shows coming up. Of course, I've got my Overlook series. George got his wonderful How to Make a Blank Movie series, which I have thoroughly enjoyed. And of course, we got the live stream every Sunday. Anything else, George?
No. This week's how-to is how to make a Fast and Furious movie, which should be out on Tuesday, but maybe Wednesday.
First, with the script, you start off with a very large box of crayons. And
how do you know my writing process?
Took a wild guess.
And we also just mentioned briefly that we might do a series on the year 1982 for some of the overlooks. Maybe some shorter. Call them
overlooked. I think we'll just call it celebrating 1982 because I don't think any of these movies are overlooked anymore.
No. The at the extraterrestrial. Yes. I think I've heard of it, but yeah, no, I'm gonna have to look that one up.
I really, in my head canon, make it a sequel to The Thing.
That would be wonderful. I would watch the hell out of that.
Ouch.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yes. So no, nothing extra from me. And Sean will be back with us next week, and hopefully Eggy keeps promising to join us, and then he goes and has family commitments, and so he always lets us down.
Eggy and I will be doing a follow-up video to the Picard, and we will be talking about Strange New Worlds, and I'll tell you what I hate about the new show, and we'll kind of go from there. So that's I think that wraps it up. So George, always fun, and we will see you all on the next stream.